Hi, everybody. My name is Max. I'm here today on behalf of the Badgerland Bluegrass Music Association to talk about the great old fiddle tune, Big Sciota. Well, it's also known as Big Sciota, and sometimes I call it Big Sciota, but what do I know? Anyways, it's one of the great old tunes that's played frequently, and I'd like to talk it over with you a little bit today. Anyways, this is a good exercise for me as well because I've never really played this song note for note before. I've jammed on it a lot. I know the chords, but I've never really had to sit down and work it out. And that was a good exercise for me too. In fact, I wanted to mention a couple of things about that process of developing a tune for those of you that might be interested and might want to pursue it a little bit further. I think the process of working up a tune in your own style is great, not only as a intellectual exercise for your head, but it has practical benefits for your playing as well. So, anyways, before I get too far into it, I wanted to mention that a book that influenced me a long time ago and helped me get the ability to make up my own tunes is one called Splitting the Licks by Janet Davis. Sorry. And you can say I've got this old version here. I checked online, and it's still available, although apparently Mel Bay owns the book now. There are several sites where you can get it in print. The best deal I saw was directly from melbay.com, where you can get it in the form of an ebook for about $20. If you want hard copy, it'll cost you a little bit more. I saw it on Amazon as well. So I recommend it. She's got a lot of practical suggestions and a good method for developing tunes, both in the standard Scruggs style and melodic as well. So check it out if you're so inclined. Now, I did want to mention the process I use, which was influenced a lot by Janet and her book. But the very first thing I think that's really important about a tune that you want to develop and play in your own way is go out and listen to different versions of it. Just listen. These old fiddle tunes and bluegrass standards, there are a lot of different versions by a lot of great musicians that you can draw from. So go out and listen to different versions. I listened to, I don't know, 5 or 6 different versions of it, both in bluegrass style and old-timey as well. And a lot of them are nice, so I heard a lot of great music, and it really got the song in my head. Now, the second part to do, if you read tab or standard musical notation, go out and look at some tabs. That's also easy to do in this day and age. I Googled Big Sciota, and under images, they had all kinds of different versions that were out there. I also used some bluegrass-specific resources. I looked at the banjo hangout for some of the versions they had. I got to be honest with you, I didn't click with the ones that they had. I eventually went over to Fiddler's Hangout, and sure enough, they had a pretty nice version there in musical notation. So I was able to look at that. I also found a couple of different versions that were attributed to Brian Sutton, and we all know what a great guitarist he is. Fortunately, they were intermediate level renditions of the way Brian plays Big Sciota, because I heard his version too. That's what I listened to. And of course, he is amazing on the guitar. And also, I found a tab that was pretty good by Andy Falco. Andy's the guitarist with the infamous String Dusters. So I had 4 different versions there to work from, and that was pretty good for a start. And the next step then is to start writing it down. And make it banjo-y. That's the way I put it, banjo-y, because as great as Andy Falco and Brian Sutton are, they play the guitar, and what they do doesn't always transfer over to the banjo so neatly. So that's where you get to start to use your own creativity. A lot of these fiddle tunes have pretty standard melody. You need to play them within certain limits so that people recognize, say, hey, you're playing Big Sciota, or you're playing, whatever tune it happens to be. And that, if you're informed by different tabs and by different ways that you've heard, I think it helps the process. Along with that, there's a couple practical benefits to writing it down. One is that it'll help you understand the fingerboard a little bit better and what you're doing with your left hand. It also helps with your right hand. What are the fingerings, what are the strings you got to get to? As I'm sure most of you folks with a little exposure to melodic style banjo playing are aware, it's not about playing rolls. It's about being efficient in getting your left and your right hand together to find the note in the song that reflects the melody. And so you want to be efficient and not jumping all over the place. And you really have to think about it once you start writing it down and seeing what's in front of you there. And the last reason, which is really practical, is so you don't forget. Write it down so you don't forget. If you're like me, you'll find this process kind of slow at first, but like all other aspects of music, if you just do it a few times, do it with a few repetitions, then it will get easier and easier. So, having said that, let's put up the tab and we'll jump in. Maybe I'll play the song for you first slowly, and then we'll talk about how we put it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's talk about the A part. I chose to put the melody in the A part down in the lower end of the neck. And to start it off, I went with some triplets because I think that gives it a nice Celtic or fiddly kind of feel right at the beginning. In order to play those fast triplets, start with a good whack on on the thumb on the D string and then hammer 2 times. Ba-da-da-dump, ba-da-da-dump. By the way, those of you who remember the old Addams Family theme from the old TV show, that's the same riff that they used to create the melody of that song. If you want to simplify it, you can play it in 2 notes. Just play the D and the E. So instead of ba-da-da-dump, just go ba-da-dump, and that'll work just as well. Now, before we get into the details of how to bring out the melody on this tune, I do want to say a little bit about the left hand position. You notice here in the A part, a lot of the notes, particularly the 7th fret of the D string, are marked with 4th finger, your little finger, your pinky. I recommend that when you're playing this song, keep fretting the 7th fret with your pinky finger. In fact, generally in melodic style of playing, I think you're better off using your little finger on the 7th fret for the main reason that it gets your hand in position to cover whatever frets you need on the higher strings as you go through the melody. Getting that pinky extended a little bit opens up your hand and allows you to move freely up on the other strings. Now, in terms of the melody, to get that melody, you'll notice starting right at the end of the first measure, we're going to finger the B string with the middle finger. Look at the last couple of notes of the first measure, thumb, index, and then middle on the B string, and that pattern is repeated on the next series of notes. This is what's known as an interior roll. For this song, the roll is a forward roll in the first line of the song, the first 4 measures, and you'll see at the end, which is measure number 7, right before the first ending, there's another interior roll backwards roll. So interior roll is just when you're doing the first, second, and third string, specifically using the middle finger of the right hand to hit the B string, and it can go forward or backwards or alternate like any of your other standard types of rolls. Might feel a little unusual to you at first, but once you cop to the idea that it's really just a forward roll or just a backward roll moved over one string, will start to make a little more sense to your hands. Another little piece I'd like to point out in the second measure, right at the end, is to hit the A note on the G string at the second fret. And that's necessary, again, to stay with the melody a little bit better. Throughout the first couple of measures and most of the rest of the piece, we're hitting that A note on the D string down on the 7th fret. However, to get the right melody, we have to go on the second string in that measure and then do a pull off to get back to the G note, the open G, to keep the melody running. Again, if you're using your pinky finger on the 7th fret there already, you'll find it's a pretty quick move. Just move it up to the 4th fret to hit that F sharp note, and then get the A note on the G string, pull off, and then you're back ready to go using the 1st and 4th fingers on the D string again to get the 7th and the 4th fret. The other feature I'd like to point out in the A part is in the endings. You'll see a 8th note and then a quarter note. Ba-dum, 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 which again is kind of a Celtic sounding syncopation and adds some nice feel to it. It might be a little difficult for you at first because the point of the syncopation is to put that G note, which is your solid sounding rest note, your home note, off the beat. So it's shifted over a little bit. Ba-dump, ba-dump. So take the time to make sure you're getting the right feel at a slower speed. And once you get it up to speed, you'll find that it makes a pretty nice effect, a nice syncopation that goes with the tune well. Okay, next let me play the B part for you, and then we'll talk about that for a minute as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, looking at the B part here, especially the first 4 measures of the B part, 9 through 12, I think we see a good example of being able to play the same notes in different positions or different strings across the neck. I tried it a couple different ways, and what I found was the way the melody plays, it was more efficient to switch the hand position to get the notes in different strings going through the melody than to try to stick with one and not move my left hand. So right away in measure number 9, the beginning of the B section, you'll see that I'm got the A note on the first string, and then I'm fingering the 5th string to get the B note. Now that's a little trick that some of you might not be familiar with, but it comes in handy, pun intended, in situations like this where you want to get the melody note and you got to get back to the lead note, in this case the A note on the first string. Next comes the quick chord change to the D, so we're still hanging on the A note, and there's a B note in that as well, also played on the 5th fret. Notice also the syncopation is continuing to develop throughout the piece. The B part is generally more syncopated than the first part, the A part. Now, in measure number 11, the 3rd measure of the B part, you'll see that we're playing the A note on the 10th fret of the B string. I'll bet those of you that play some melodic style are more familiar with that hand position than fingering the 7th and the 9th fret on the 5th string, as in the previous measure. So this is what we've been talking about. There are many different ways to skin the banjo cat, so to speak. Like all fretted instruments, you can get the same note on different strings. It gives us the flexibility to try to do things that are logical for the right hand as well as the left, and stay true to the melody. Also notice in the second half of measure 11, we're coming down the scale, and the F sharp note is played on the 7th fret of the B string, and the E note is played on the 9th fret of the G string. Now moves over to measure 12, and the E note is played on the 5th fret of the B string. That hand motion gets you in position for the rest of the song, which is from the 5th fret down. Also notice there on the C chord, measure 12, that rhythm is back again, ba-dum, ba-dum. So the syncopation is indeed continuing. Now, in the last line of the piece, it continues on down the scale. We're back down in the territory we were for most of the A part. We've got our same hand position that we set up using our pinky finger on the 7th fret of the D string and playing the E notes up on the 5th fret of the B string, up and down the scale a couple of times to the first ending. There's that rhythm again, ba-dump, ba-dump, and then it all repeats. So in a very quick nutshell, that's the B part. So there you have it, friends. That's my take on the Big Sciota. I hope you found something of use in it. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the comments. Or if you're in the Milwaukee area, get a hold of the Badgerland Bluegrass Music Association. They know how to reach me, and I'd be happy to talk about the tune with you a little bit. Everybody, please stay well, stay safe, and I hope we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.